Dr. Jackie's here, changing life loving you. Yeah, that's the groove, life loving you. Feel the truth, move, life loving you. It's all we do, come on through, it's just for you.
Hi, Dr. Jacquie here for another Love, Life, and You podcast. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to my channel. Now today we got a really good topic that I was eager to jump into when I just learned about it. It's filled with so many good things. It's you hurt me, now what happens? You hurt me, now what? I just got to say it again for effect, because that's powerful. We all know that hurt. When I said it, I'm sure that certain things came back to your memory. You were probably flooded with a flurry of different feelings. It elicited a visceral reaction, because instantly, the topic alone made you start to recall some things that have happened to you that you wish would not have happened. Hopefully, you'll learn some steps on how to manage that, how to work through when you are hurt, what to do and what not to do, and you'll be empowered by some very strong strategies that you can employ to make your hurt make you better and not bitter.
Research shows that emotional pain activates the same brain regions as physical pain, making heartbreak, grief, and betrayal feel just as real as a broken bone. What do you say to that?
Well, anybody that's felt pain could have told you that. Everybody knows. That deep wounding that you get from emotional pain doesn't just go away in 6 weeks like a broken bone does. You get your little cast, you might do a little bit of rehab, you're as good as new. Actually, the bone heals stronger than it was before. But what do we know? You get wounded in the heart, and it could be decades later that you're still triggered and living from the pain of that particular traumatic event or painful event.
Why do you feel like emotional pain sometimes takes longer to heal from?
I think it's abstract. We can't really identify what it is that we're feeling, why we're feeling it. You go with a broken bone, whether it's a compound fracture or not, the doctors know exactly what to do to get you whole. We don't know what it's going to take to get us whole when someone breaks us in a way that we've never experienced before. So this is why people are still carrying so much baggage, because they've never figured out the recipe. So you got men, sleeping around because some woman broke their heart and they lost their confidence, right? So they've never figured out, how do I repair myself, my soul, from what just happened to me, so that I'm not worse off as a result, but somehow I'm better. And now I've gained insight so that this won't happen to me again. Instead, what we do is we deploy defense mechanisms. These things that are supposed to be temporary, that are not that effective because they're not about finding the cure or making you whole. They're just about keeping you in crisis mode just to get you over the hump so that you can figure it all out and then really do the work to get whole.
So it sounds like people get stuck in cycles often.
Yeah.
So what do you say to people who are trying to navigate out of the cycle of pain? Because it seems like you don't even know that it's happening.
So we're going to work through some strategies now on how to get whole. So one of the things that I'm going to say is the first step is going to be on taking responsibility. Taking responsibility. So the first thing that I do when I'm injured, wounded, whether it's deeply or whether it's just not deeply, if it's even through something that happened that wasn't pleasant to me, I'm not even sure how to feel about it. The first thing that I do is I say, what part was my responsibility in what just happened? So a follow-up question might be, what could I have done different? So you need to imagine that somebody else is looking in on what happened. So you have like a third person just looking and observing your interaction in that particular situation. And they're able to actually give you honest, unbiased feedback about what you did wrong. Because you know how it is, you could raise your voice at somebody, but say, I wasn't yelling, I wasn't mad, but that third person can kind of see through that. So the first thing is find your responsibility. And the reason why this is so important, an important step in working through, pain, that emotional pain and hurt, is because it's so easy to blame somebody else. That's what we all do. So that's what I consider to be human nature. It's normal for people when they're hurt, when they're underdeveloped, to always say, they hurt me. Look what they did to me. So what you're doing is you're saying, I am a victim. Everything that I'm feeling, you made me feel. Everything that I feel bad, you made happen to me. but you take no responsibility. So let's talk about responsibility and what it looks like. It could mean that there's something about that person that was shown to you, that they're not a person that you can go deep with. Just earlier today, I was telling somebody in my office, I was saying, you know, you go hard for somebody that you love and care about. You got to be careful who you give that to. The person needs to qualify for that 100%. You know, they call it foolproof liquor. You need somebody that knows how to take foolproof love.
That's good.
Right? So you can't just give that away to just any and everybody. They need to qualify. And then what you need to do is you need to learn how to pull back so that if it's a wine alcohol level of 12%, you meet them at 12%. So taking responsibility means reading the people correctly, vetting them before, what is the saying? Fools rush in before you rush in. Vet people. Number two, it means taking responsibility in terms of, did I react out of a trigger, or was I responding responsibly in my communication with that individual? Was I communicating fully? Because there's a lot of things that people want to hold somebody responsible for that they never told them either. And they expect that people just supposed to know. No one just knows. You heard me, I said, supposed to know. Not supposed to, but people are supposed to know that they shouldn't do this, they shouldn't do that. Have you defined the terms of the relationship? Have you told people what are your key things that are really important to you? Like for me, in a friendship, I will share with somebody what my rules are that govern our friendship. Loyalty, privacy. You don't repeat anything. There's certain things that are off limits. You don't date someone I dated, for example, or you don't try to befriend one of my friends or pull in a threesome in our relationship. You know how people try to have multiple friends coming together? We don't know if that's gonna work. Sometimes you have more friction and problems because a third person has entered the relationship. So you have to define that. What are your terms for the relationship?
So
If you don't do that, you can't hold somebody responsible for something you never shared.
So is it a combination of getting boundaries? What is it? Is it boundaries plus self-awareness that leads to healing?
We're still on taking responsibility and what taking responsibility looks like.
Okay.
Has to do with what you communicate about the boundaries of the relationship or the rules governing the relationship. What are your non-negotiables and so forth. It also has to do with you taking part of the blame that's responsible for you for why you're there. If you didn't read the person properly, or if you didn't vet them, if you didn't say to them what you needed to say, that's a part of you taking responsibility.
Gotcha. Okay.
The second thing would be the silver lining. Understanding what was the purpose, because I believe everything that you go through is for a reason. So a lot of times your pain is the tuition that you pay in the school of life. Is that tuition really being well spent? Did you learn anything? I don't care how bad something was, there's always a silver lining in it. I lost my sister through a horrible car accident. I wouldn't be the person that I am, and I can define to you what silver linings that came up out of that horrible situation. But I can also tell you what I learned to do and what I learned not to do. That's the silver lining.
So when how I can imagine, how do you get past the hurt to then get to see the silver lining? Because I feel like a lot of people get stuck on the hurt.
Right, because that's what they're fixating on. And guess what? What you fixate on, you increase and expand. So all you're gonna know is pain. You're gonna feel more pain, and everything's gonna be about your pain. Instead of, what's the other side of that? And remember now, you have to experience pain in order to appreciate joy and pleasant things, right? So it's the balance, it's the counterbalance of it. So pain is a part of life. I haven't found one person on the planet that has said that they've lived a life without pain. It's built into life. It's pre-programmed. Because most of us don't even pay attention to things unless they become memorable. Painful things make you remember. Put your hand on the stove after your mom told you not to do it 3 or 4 times. It doesn't matter. The burn will cause you to remember, don't do that again. But when we don't do the work, which is the next step, the self-reflection. So there's reflection and self-reflection. Self-reflection teaches you about yourself, who you are, who you're becoming, what you need to do, what's working for you and what's not. Reflection is concentrating or considering a way of thinking, what you think, or about situations and circumstances. So one is more outward and one is more inward. How many people do you know that really know themselves well and that walk authentically?
Only people who've done the work.
There you go. Only people that have done the work.
We actually have a stat, or just a realization. It says therapists use guided questioning, constructive restructuring of the mind, and self-reflection to help clients get past negative pain experiences. So what you say is absolutely true. Now, why do you think people struggle to get through that, struggle to look at me like, oh, it's me? Is it easy? Is it just that easier? Or is it just, it's easier to put the blame on somebody else? Or how do you?
It is. It's easy. It's the easiest thing to do. Plus the work that you have to do is more abstract. Plus in a microwave society, it takes time. So I need to be able to have a set aside time where all I do is think about me. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling that? Where does this come from? What is it really about? Dig down to figure out what is the root cause. What does this spring from? Then also, if we're talking about examining your pain, I need to know that. I need to know, where does this pain come from? Why am I feeling it? Is it valid for me to feel that way about this thing?
So when you say, is it valid, what do you mean by that?
You might say, I don't like people. I love people, but I don't like them. So I don't really want to have too much contact with people. This is just a thought that's coming to my mind that someone might have. Is that a valid thought?
I mean,
is it working for you? So really what you're saying, if you dig deeper, something has happened to you with people that makes you afraid of people. But what do we know? Everything is around relationships. Your business growth, your professional as well as your personal development, and your ascent to greatness is all centered around what? Relationships. So people are an indispensable part of the equation. So is that really valid for me to feel that way? But what I'm discovering as I delve down into it is that I've been hurt, and the source of my pain has always been people disappointing me, people betraying me, people hurting me, whatever it was that they did. I would then begin to dissect each step of that, each scenario, because what I find that people do is we lump things together that don't really belong together. Maybe it wasn't so much about the person, is that you were a fool and you rushed in. Maybe it was that you broke some of your moral strategies, like maybe you shared things with them that you should not have shared. And that's what led to that. Maybe you were unloyal, and so that angered the person. And this, you see what I'm saying? So you really need to begin to break them all down. This is a work that I did when I was in college. I decided that I was going to get to know me because I was very afraid of being alone. I started to understand why I felt what I feel. I found out what kind of person I was. Am I generally an optimistic person, an open person, a closed person, a secretive person, a private person? Was I trustworthy? Was I a good person? Was I fun to be around? Was I boring? You know.
It sounds like you were asking yourself a lot of questions starting with I. And so it sounds like you hear affirmations, I statements. I feel like I statements and doing the self-reflection on I helps you frame where you are and where you're trying to go.
Exactly. Exactly. I statements are really important because when you ask yourself a question, it might not happen immediately that you get the answer, but the more you give yourselves time, like turn that doggone radio down when you're driving into work. And when you've already asked the question, sometimes it happens at that same session that you're just sitting by yourself, with yourself, in yourself. Other times, the answer will just come. You're just driving down the road. It tends to happen when you disconnect. So that's more frequently going to be the circumstance when you're disconnecting. There's always a place that each of us has that fosters that sort of self-discovery. For me, it's in the bathroom. I don't care what I'm doing in the bathroom. If I'm cleaning it, walking around in the bathroom, in the shower, in the tub, brushing my teeth, combing my hair, putting on makeup, dressing, the bathroom is my place. Now think about that. The fact that if I know that and I'm looking for answers, what can I do? It's already given me some instructions.
Go to the bathroom.
There you go.
That's good. So we've gotten a way of how to map our own selves. And so sometimes it's like you said, I've allowed things to happen to me. Now that I've allowed things to happen to me, how do I deal with the people who are affiliated or around the hurt? Like I found the root, it was me, but now it's like 80% me, 20% them.
There you go.
How do you navigate that?
Oh, I like that now. First, what you have to decide is even what you just said, the formula. Is it human nature or is it them?
Break
Is
that
it
down.
human nature or is it me? So there's some things that people just do, that's just human nature. So you really also shouldn't categorize that or point that to being attributed to that person, because everybody does that, the most. What I've noticed about myself, my husband always says, you're an idealist. You know, most people are not gonna take their integrity or what they think to do to that level. And you shouldn't, as an idealist, you expect most people to be there, but they're not. I agree. There's like that 20% of people that are very successful. The rest of the 80, not so much, right? It's the same thing in terms of when we're talking about people's morality, even people's ability to be very honest. There's a percentage. So I think you need to figure out how to set your expectations, which will then translate into you setting the right behavioral outcomes, what you do with certain people, what you don't do. You get it? Expectation drives behavior, then drives your outcomes. But so if it is
80% me, 20% them.
80% you and 20% them, I would start to address that 20% factor with a conversation. Let them know where they might have zigged right when they should have zigged left. And then see if there can be a meeting of the minds. Are they down with what I'm saying doesn't work for me or not? But then the bigger part is, since 80% is me, I'm gonna adjust that. Whatever my self-reflection leads me to see is the appropriate response for it.
That's good.
Here's another thing that I learned. Say that it's 50% you, or say it's 60% you, and maybe 40% me. I'm gonna give you a better one. Say it's 60% them.
40.
It's 10% human nature, and it's 20% me. Did I get that right? 20% me, 30, and it's 30% me. Okay.
Yeah.
I would factor all of those things in, because when I started to realize, like, some things the average person just does or they don't do. Most people are not a person of their word. But I have an expectation, because that's one of my things. That's one of my markers. You got to do what you say. Most people do not do what they say. They gonna call you a few minutes before the day of and say, hey, I ain't gonna be able to do it. That's if you're lucky, because most people, you're calling them, hey, what happened? Where are you? Oh, I forgot, I'm not gonna be able to make it, or whatever. Or I'm not gonna have that for you today. So most people don't. That's human nature to me. So am I gonna criticize you heavier because you don't? I think I'm gonna give some grace, because I'm gonna realize, oh, he's not in that 20%. So I had to deal with that, because my son got really disappointed. Like, people just don't, they're out here saying this and that and they don't do it. I said, son, just because you're in the 20%. 80% of people are not people of their word. 80% of people do not, when they say they want this and that they want that, they're not on their grind trying to make that happen. There are a lot of talk. So it caused him to readjust his expectations. Why are we upset most of the time? Most of the time we're hurt because people don't meet our expectations. They dash our expectations. When expectations aren't met, we're unhappy people.
That's powerful. So ultimately, when we're acknowledging, when you acknowledge the human nature factor, then you acknowledge your own factor. It makes it seem forgiveness seems like it should be more automatic. And I think that's what's the problem is what are the tools of forgiveness? Acknowledging human nature, acknowledging yourself, and then the healing process starts.
I like that.
How critical is it for people to get to that forgiveness stage to start their healing?
Well, I think you can't really move on and be a whole person. You're gonna be jacked up. if you're carrying around all of these, you're harboring things about this person or that person. You know how many people I've met on the way going up that were on their way going down, or people that I met that are on their way up? Some of them you could have good relationships and bad. Relationships, again, make the world go around. So I think that they're very important. But I think moreover, your ability to forgive is really for you. You can't really go in and be a good whole individual. You can't even enjoy the quality of your life. It's going to be impacted by just all that crap you're carrying around about this one did that and that and the other. I was thinking about it this morning. I used to be so afraid that whatever happened before was going to happen again because of just my perspective of how I processed what I went through. And one of the things that changed it for me is that I stopped harboring, I think, just ill will or ill remembrance due to what the person did that might have affected me negatively. So if they hurt me, I used to just throw away memories of anything that they did, I did with them that was happy or fun-filled or whatever. But now I cherish that, and I cherish the fact that there was a time that everything was groovy. It was good. I retain that. And I acknowledge that if things went left, and I know that I've done my part, right, and they're still left, that just meant that there was a juncture when our relationship had to shift, where they're no longer going to be productive in my life.
That's good.
And I let that go.
And you don't do that with bitterment or resentment. You just acknowledge it's the season.
Plus, how can you really be bitter when you've already recognized your role in it also? And you realize part of it is human nature. Nobody's perfect. To me, the people that are pointing their fingers the most are the ones that are saying to themselves, I wouldn't do that. I'm perfect and I'm better than you in terms of how I respond to specific conflict and situations. I don't hold that to be true. I do believe that I might be more of a person of truth than some individuals, but I can't even praise myself for that because the reason that I am was born out of my, trauma. It's not like I just because of my moral fiber decided I'm gonna love truth. I love truth because it's a part of me feeling safer. And I don't feel like me dealing with the truth is a bad thing. I think it's a good thing for me. And it was something that I saw emboldened in me when I took that break in college to say, let me find out about me. And I would ask myself very tough questions about me. When you ask, your gut starts getting tight because you're afraid of what the answer is. I still get that feeling sometimes, but I think the discomfort in knowing the truth versus my fear of the truth is always going to be outweighed. I'm always going to want to know the truth because that has a happier ending for me than the fear of me knowing the truth.
I believe the pain of knowing the truth gives you the keys to your freedom.
There you go. Now, that's well said. Look, I'm going to give you a Nancy Pelosi clap on that one. That was perfect. The keys of that gives you the freedom.
Exactly. Because it seems like once you sit in the pain of the truth, you now have a path towards freedom. Because there's nothing in your mind that's blocking you. You're not blaming other people. You don't have resentment clouding your judgment. You don't have anything that's keeping you from that true path.
You're clear. And there's no tethers keeping you back in an old season or in something way back in the past. I'm free now to really move forward. I'm free to keep ascending, increasing, and excelling.
Exactly.
And that's really what it's all about. Well, thank you so much for that.
No, that was good. Doc, do you have any other closing thoughts, remarks about forgiveness or how to move forward, or any tips to give to the people before we close?
I think follow these tips that have been given. Apply yourself to them. So we talked about no blaming. We talked about looking for your role of the responsibility. And we talked also about your silver lining. And I think the last one to tag on the end is the gift of forgiveness. Nobody's perfect, not even you. And so that should lead you down that path to be able to really move on. No tethers, no anchors in an old season or anything in the past. Because it could be that the very key to your future is tied up in a function that you need to perform now, that if you're tethered back there, you won't be able to join yourself to. It could be, if you're a business person, that you have an opportunity to partner, but because you've been burnt before through a partnership, you're reticent and you say no. But it could have been a multi-million-dollar partnership. And you wouldn't join yourself to it because of the fear that's got you anchored in something that happened 15, 20 years ago. Let it go. Well, this has been really good. I think that we should do a part 2 where we talk about how taking responsibility is not a part of your portion. For example, if somebody was molested as a child, what responsibility could they really take? There's no responsibility that a victim of abuse or a victim of trauma can possibly have. So I want to make sure that our viewers and listeners understand that. There is no responsibility. We're talking about relational conflict when I'm talking about your role in taking responsibility. But in the role of traumatic experiences or some form of abuse or whatever, there is no role of responsibility for that victim, and you really are a victim. But I want to explore what are some things that someone that has been a victim of trauma, someone that has been a victim of some deep wounding from their childhood or even from their adulthood, what are some steps that they can take to move on and to heal from that? Stay tuned for part 2, Love, Life, and You. Dr. Jacquie signing out now. Hey, Dr. Jacquie here. I'm your how-to lady. How to do life, how to do love, and how to do you, boo. So click, like, and subscribe. Stay tuned for more to come.